Hello, today we're at Borders, live at '01, and we're talking with Jewel about her new record, Perfectly Clear. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
At first glance and on first listen, it might seem that Perfectly Clear is a departure, but in fact, it really isn't, especially given your history and your early history. It fits perfectly with your songwriting. So if you could connect some of those dots, early performing with your father and country music.
Sure. I grew up really being in love with artists that defied genres. I didn't really know it at the time, but I loved people like Brenda Lee or Linda Ronstadt, people that just had great songs. Then I started to fall in love with songwriters. Merle Haggard, who wrote 51 of his own 54 #1 hits, which I don't think's ever been done before or since. Loretta Lynn wrote The Pill, which was revolutionary. I mean, she just talked about her life in such an obvious and truthful way. It was shocking to me that you could do that, as well as others like Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and Neil Young and all my influences. I was raised on a ranch. I was raised on a ranch in Alaska. My dad's a cowboy. Gosh, I was raised in a saddle barn, believe it or not. I get to tell my kids that one day. I'm very excited. We had a coal stove for heat. We actually picked our own coal out of the veins in the bluffs. We only ate what we could kill or can, basically. We lived in such a remote place that it's actually, Homer, the town where I grew up in, is the farthest west you can drive in the entire United States. It's called the end of the road. And so my house, our ranch was beyond that, and so you had to walk 2 miles just to get to the cabin where I was raised. And it was very rural. And it's actually open range up there still, no fences, and you can push all your cattle into these open grasslands in the summer to let your hay grow. So my favorite childhood memories are of, riding horses up and sleeping under the stars overnight with all the cattle bawling, and my dad and all of his siblings actually play guitar as well. They write all of their own music, and it was, my dad's music was really beautiful, really pure country music.
And you performed with him, so you would have been performing country music from a very early age.
Yeah, I performed all kinds of, my dad and I, it started with both my parents. Both my parents, when they were married still, sang in hotels for tourists. They did like a variety show, and I would get up and yodel. Then my parents got divorced when I was 8, and my dad and I became a duet, and so we'd tour all over honky-tonks and fishermen and lumberjack bars and biker bars and bank openings and clothing store openings and things like that, and we'd sing all the great songs, and a lot of them were country songs. Some of them were the Eagles, some of them Brown Eyed Girl, but just great songs, great songwriting, and I think that's what got me into wanting to be a songwriter and a storyteller above all else.
When you first imagined making an album, long before you actually made one, was a country music album perhaps what you were thinking about making?
I never really thought about it.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be a recording artist.
Right.
My dad made a living by singing locally, and I thought maybe that's, what I'd be able to do. I never thought I was some kind of talent that would be famous. I never had a desire to be famous. Loved writing, I loved reading. Writing's always been like a puzzle, that little math problem that I always wanted to figure out and try and get better at. And honestly, I don't know if most kids are this way, but I didn't know there was a genre, there were genres. I didn't know there was pop music and country music. I thought there was just great music and bad music. Right. And I hated bad music and I liked great music, but I listened to Cole Porter and the Cole Porter songbook because I thought the songwriting was so perfect. And I listened to Merle Haggard for the same reason. I listened to Joni Mitchell for the same reason. I listened to Loretta Lynn. To me, it was just about great songs and great storytelling. A lot of that was country. And I developed my own style, and when I got discovered, nobody actually knew what to call me. They didn't know where I fit in.
If we go back a couple of years, after the last album, Goodbye Alice in Wonderland, what were some of the decisions that drove the process forward to doing a country record?
I've been talking about wanting to do a country record and country songs my whole career. I've put country songs on every single one of my albums. You Are Meant for Me was actually a country album on the CD. Had a steel guitar, and I actually cut that album with Nashville Players, Nashville producer. And then the label changed it, took the steel out, and they took it to pop radio, which shouldn't have worked, honestly. Right. I mean, the Spice Girls actually were king at that time, or queen. And you have a really simple little teeny song called You Were Meant for Me, suddenly just breaking the charts open. So it was an anomaly, but amazingly it worked. But I remember the second time I was on the cover of Rolling Stone, which it was at the beginning of my second album, an album called Spirit. the whole article is about, I can't wait to do country songs. I can't wait to do this country record that I have planned. But, you know, as the label just wouldn't work anything country. I don't know if they didn't have the connections at radio or what, but they wouldn't. So I continue to put country songs in every album. And I've continued to really enjoy a country fan base. A lot of country fans show up at all my shows, and there's not a big difference. I don't think that people see music the same way that record executives do or that radio executives do. I think they like great music the way I did when I was a kid, and if it fits within what you consider great or not great, they'll buy it.